Good morning, gentlemen. We're on our 28th segment of the Think Before You Speak series, Shemirat Halashon with clarity. Lilu Nishmat, the great Chafetz Chaim Zechet Tzadik L'Bracha. These halachot are also Lilu Nishmat, Luz Aliza Bat Henriette with her children that passed in the fire, Ruach Hashem Tenichenam Began Eden. These halachot are also dedicated for the Yeshuot and the Shmirah and the Hatzlacha of our Bnei Chabura, along with the Yeshuot for Klal Yisrael. And specifically, these halachot are dedicated for the Shmirah Gedolah ve'Elyonah, the Hatzlacha Gedolah of Chaim Davido ben Chaisar. Today's halachot, titled, Not Allowed to Believe. So now, Rabotai, listen to this. We know you're not allowed to believe lashon hara. And therefore, opening with today's halachot would seem a little bit superfluous. But in truth, you're not allowed to act upon the lashon hara that you hear. You're not allowed to cause damage to the person that you heard lashon hara about. You're not allowed to disgrace the person that you heard lashon hara about. And, it's funny, if you're not allowed to believe it, then of course you're not allowed to act upon it, because you wouldn't be acting upon it if you didn't believe it. So the person already went wrong. He heard lashon hara and he believed it, and now he caught himself. That's the guy that today's halachot are zeroing in on. You believed the lashon hara when you weren't allowed to. So now stop the bleeding. Because if you're going to act upon it, you're going to get another avera of lashon hara. If you're going to disgrace the person that you heard lashon hara about, you're going to get another avera of lashon hara. So if you did hear lashon hara about someone, you're not allowed to act upon it. You're not allowed to hate the person for it. You're not allowed to disgrace the person, let alone you're not allowed to even believe what you heard in the first place. Now, what happens if you heard lashon hara about a person, and now the guy goes and he wants to neglect obligations that he has to that person because of the lashon hara he heard? As an example, you heard lashon hara that this worker in your store, he was accused of stealing from you. Now you have no proof. You don't know if it's true. So you're not allowed to believe it. And because you're not allowed to believe it, you cannot act upon it. So this guy was accused of stealing from your store. You're not allowed to hold his salary back saying, hey, this guy might have stolen from me. Until it's proven true, you're not allowed to believe it. You're not allowed to act upon it. You're not allowed to forego or neglect your obligations to that person. Very common if somebody's collecting tzedakah. He's going from shul to shul, and someone tells you see that guy? He's a fake. Now, you don't know if it's true or not. You're not allowed to believe it. Now, this guy's going to say, my gosh, maybe the guy's a fake. So now he's no longer going to give tzedakah. He's going to hold back from giving tzedakah to this guy because maybe he's a fake. You're not allowed to hold back from giving tzedakah to someone who is accused of being a faker. If you don't know it's true, you're not allowed to believe it. Now you're going to say, wait 1 second, Rabbi, you already taught us in the past that if you hear lashon hara about somebody and it's pertaining to you and it actually can affect you, you're allowed to protect yourself. You're allowed to protect yourself. And if that's the case, this guy might be a fake, the guy that's collecting tzedakah. So let me protect myself and not give. The only time you're allowed to protect yourself when you hear lashon hara about somebody is only when it comes to things that you're not already obligated in. But over here, you're obligated to give tzedakah. When the guy comes and puts his hand out to you, you have a chiyuv from the Torah to give tzedakah. Why are you not doing that chiyuv? Why are you holding back that obligation from tzedakah? Because of hearsay? Because someone accused this guy of being a fake and you don't have any proof to it and not knowing it's true? No, there you're not allowed to hold back saying I'm protecting myself to absolve yourself from the obligation of a mitzvah. And therefore, someone's collecting, someone accuses the guy of being a phony. If you were going to give him anyways, you cannot withhold. You have to do your obligation of tzedakah and give him the money unless it's proven true. Now, what's the Teshuvah? The Teshuvah. What is the Teshuvah of doing on someone who accepted lashon hara already. Now, depends. Did the guy repeat it to other people? If he did not repeat it, he just heard lashon hara and he accepted it and believed it, but he didn't repeat it to anyone else, then he has to say in his heart, I no longer believe the story I heard. He has to pull it out from himself. I no longer believe the story I heard. I'm never again going to fall into this mistake of accepting lashon hara from anybody. And he has to confess in front of Hashem that he did an averah by accepting it in the first place. Now, what happens if he did repeat it to other people? So he heard the lashon hara and he repeated it over to others as well. Ooh, he has no teshuvah, listen to this, until he does another two things besides what we just mentioned. Besides confessing and besides Kabbalah la'atid, never to do it again in the future, and besides pulling the story out from his heart and saying, I don't believe it anymore, he has to do another two things. If he repeated it to others, he has to go to the person that this story was about, and he has to appease that person. He has to be mafayis, that person. And he also has to go to the people he repeated it to and convince them that what he told them over was not true. And only then could he get Teshuvah. Now, I want to tell you something. We've been talking about how terrible lashon hara is. We've been talking about how difficult it is for a person to be zochet to sigulot, biracha, shefa, as long as he's still listening and talking and giving over lashon hara. But to get rid of it, if all you did was hear it, it's not so difficult to get rid of it. If you said it over to others, that's a little bit more tricky. But if you heard lashon hara, walk away from the conversation and say, Abba, I made a mistake. I should never have listened. Abba, I listened to one of your kids. How did I do that? Please, forgive me. What I did was wrong. I don't believe it, and I'll never do it again. And it's at that moment that Hashem says to you, my friend, you just walked away from bad words that was talked about my children, and you felt terrible about it. You'll never listen to that again. Hashem says, I'm never going to listen to anything bad about you again. The Mekatrim come to Borei Olam Shamayim. Hey, this guy, you know what he just did? Borei Olam said, wait. This guy just resolved that he's never listening to the bad about other people, about my other children. I'm never going to listen to the bad about him as well. Thank you for listening.